So in your book, you were critical not only of a climate of retribution, which now exists in our politics, but there are other problems as well that you refer to in the book. A culture of win at all costs, a feeling that the adversary is the enemy.
Yes.
And a need to bludgeon opponents. Instead of bludgeoning their policies, you bludgeon them personally. All these things that you want to change. Your book is really a call to action. How do we go about changing all this?
First of all, within a political culture, there has to be sort of accepted standards that we hold our public officials and those who are publicly responsible. We have to hold them to account. We have to say that there are expectations that we have of how they're going to behave that go beyond merely legal expectations. It's a respect for democracies. You mentioned voting protection in your introduction. Respect for the voters. In the quest to win elections, do you trod the voters underfoot? Do you find rules that you try to enforce or that you fabricate that have the effect of depressing the vote or making it harder for eligible voters to participate? Should lawyers be a party to that? I mean, there'll be differences, by the way, about voting policy. But if you set those policies aside, in the drive to win, there have to be limits, or you're putting the democracy itself at risk. And so you're quite right. I thought that a runaway partisanship that just dispenses with all rules of right conduct, that treats the adversary as an enemy, not as an opponent to be defeated, but as an enemy to be destroyed, ultimately puts the democracy at risk. And unless we think about things that way, unless the electorate holds politicians to account for those standards, we're going to see a continued and steady corrosion in our democratic life.
Well, and then also there's the element of racism in our political discourse. I mean, Kamala Harris isn't black. The reference to black jobs, the reference to Haitians eating pets, which is false, and the like. What do we do about that? Is it for the media to correct it with fact-checking, or is it for some ethical commission to come down hard on candidates who engage in this?
To my mind, yes, the media plays a role. Ultimately, the voters play a role. What kind of leaders are they prepared to elect? You know, what kind of leaders setting what kind of moral tone? With what kind of respect for democracy are they prepared to install in high office? But I also think community leadership plays an enormous role. That is to say, the heads of our major businesses, the heads of our religious institutions, the heads of our veterans communities, our law enforcement communities, who ultimately are heard as nonpartisan voices of trust in their communities, who can speak out without being any less a Democrat or any less a Republican, speak out about the sort of conduct and the sort of rhetoric that is in bounds and the kind of conduct and rhetoric that is out of bounds in democratic politics.